Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky received the warmest of welcomes in my hometown of Toronto, Canada last week. Zelensky greeted a crowded room full of members of Canada's Ukrainian community. It's the largest population of Ukrainians outside of Ukraine, with Slava Ukraini. It's a salute with which he ends every one of his speeches and video posts that means glory to Ukraine. The crowd matched his energy, erupting in song, singing, as you heard, the Ukrainian national anthem. It was quite the week for Zelensky, who first addressed the UN General Assembly in New York City in his signature army green attire. It marked Zelensky's first in-person address to the annual gathering since the start of Russia's unprovoked war, and he did not mince words. He never does. He warned that Russia's aggression is not just a threat to his home country, but, as he has been saying since day one, it is a threat to the world. The following day, Zelensky had even stronger words for the UN Security Council, telling the body that it was essentially useless in resolving conflicts as long as Russia has veto power, which it does. He said, quote, Ukrainian soldiers are doing with their blood what the UN Security Council should do by its voting. Veto power in the hands of the aggressor is what has pushed the UN into deadlock. Zelensky then traveled to Washington, D.C. to lobby American lawmakers for more aid. He faced dozens of Republicans who have voiced their opposition to providing more money and weaponry to Ukraine. Zelensky met privately with Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, but McCarthy denied the leader's request to address the full Congress. McCarthy said, quote, we just didn't have time. We just didn't have time. Time to hear the man who represents a people fighting for their self-determination and their lives, while McCarthy and his caucus of foolish troublemakers fight to figure out their one constitutional responsibility, passing a budget. For his part, I'm sure there are a host of other things Zelensky would rather be doing, seeing as his people are actively fighting for their freedom, while McCarthy is fighting with a bunch of yahoos ready to shut down our government. Yet he made the time for McCarthy, but I digress. That's a different topic. Next up for Zelensky, the White House, where Zelensky received a friendlier reception from President Joe Biden, who's been a staunch ally since the beginning of this war. After their meeting, Biden announced an additional $325 million military aid package for Ukraine. NBC News also reporting Biden told Zelensky the U.S. will provide Ukraine with a small number of long-range missiles to aid them in the war with Russia. That's a significant victory for Zelensky, who's been asking for these weapons. They're called ATACMS for months. It may be difficult to recall today, but at the onset of Russia's war on Ukraine, some doubted Zelensky's leadership and his ability to fight for his country. When the war began, he was a relatively new leader. Elected just in 2019, he was a popular actor and he was a comedian. He ran a populist campaign against years of political corruption in Ukraine's government. The election of this young, charismatic leader felt like a real opportunity for some Ukrainians. Others didn't think a guy whose main job was being a political satirist was up to taking on Vladimir Putin and what we thought then was Europe's second strongest army. Putin, for his part, agreed. He saw nothing but opportunity in this. And so as the showdown began, Ukraine needed its biggest, strongest partner, the United States, to step up and give its full backing to Ukraine and its brand new president. What Ukraine got instead was Donald Trump. And Donald Trump made that infamous so-called perfect phone call to Zelensky, in which Trump made $400 million in congressionally approved military aid to Ukraine, contingent on Zelensky doing him a favor. The favor was getting dirt on Trump's political rival, Joe Biden, and his family. That perfect phone call got Donald Trump impeached the first time. It also put Zelensky at a disadvantage long before the war even began. In that moment, the world needed to see Ukraine as a serious player. Russia needed to see Zelensky as a leader not to be messed with. But America messed with him. Now, a year and 7 months since Russia's invasion, Zelensky has emerged as a global symbol for self-determination. Vladimir Putin thought his army would crush Ukraine in a matter of days, but Ukraine's small but mighty army, under the leadership of Volodymyr Zelensky, has held its own for more than a year and a half, beating everyone's expectations. Ukraine's current counteroffensive is making small yet significant gains against an army about 4 times its size. Zelensky's presence at the UN, Washington, and Canada this week underscores another important point, that the war is not over and victory may still be tenuous at best. While Zelensky has a strong ally in the Biden administration right now, the long-term viability of that support hinges on the results of next year's U.S. presidential election.